following program is brought to you in living color on NBC. Get down!
Hold it.
Stop!
Has it really been 50 years?
Password, please. TEXHOMA space SUCKS.
Good morning, Mr. Bonahan. The Hooker High School class of 1971 will be conducting a 50th reunion soon. We have ascertained this gathering will take place in a neutral location due to concerns over statutes of limitations. But more important to our office than the location is learning the reason for such a meeting. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to interview anyone connected with the class of 71, such as students, teachers, and administrators, to determine what does it all mean. Any assistance you need in locating persons can be obtained from this woman. She is known to maintain extensive files on any and all members of this high school class. As always, if you or any members of your production team are discovered, the secretary will disavow any knowledge of your actions. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck, Dale.
Our class has always been close, and I'm certain everybody will be willing to share their memories, thoughts, and experiences. There's the music building. I think I'll get a picture.
Doyle, come here.
Where?
By the door. I want to talk to you.
Wow, Mrs. Flanagan, how'd you do that?
You're not the only one with electronics.
Apparently.
Listen, Doyle. Many of life's answers lie within our music. You need to go to your music.
My music?
Yeah, that stuff you kids listen to. Stepping Dog, Lead Balloon, and which one was pink anyway?
You know, I've never figured that out myself.
Well, listen, go to your music.
Wait.
How will I know what songs answer the question? Some songs are not appropriate. Maybe there'll be some kind of an indicator or a sign. I better get busy.
Kindergarten was fun.
I loved kindergarten.
Mrs. Nina Barnett, I believe, was our kindergarten teacher.
My least favorite part was nap time.
We always had to have grub because they made you take a little short nap.
Kathy Zunk and I were laying on the mat and we could see Mrs. Barnett's legs underneath the desk and we started laughing. We got in big trouble for that.
We didn't want to lay down and take our nap. She just got the paddle out, spanked our little butts, and get over there and get your nap.
Smacked me on my bottom and hurt my feelings so bad that I cried myself to sleep and slept right through recess.
Mostly I remember the horse that you could pump up and down and it would make it go. I love that. I stood in line to get to ride that every day.
I climbed up on the slide there at the grade school and was about halfway up, and she told me to come down. Well, I was between, so I just went head up and went down the slide. I guess she wasn't happy about that. And anyway, she took me in and gave me a little paddling.
Her husband was the principal of the grade school, and of course everybody had these legends about the electric paddle machine and all the things down there. You didn't want to go see Mr. Barnett.
I also remember getting milk. We had a milk break every day, and we would go and get milk, and for a kindergartner that was a big deal. On Fridays, we could choose white or chocolate milk.
I went to the bathroom one day and I crawled out the bathroom window and I came home, and after that they always had to put a guard at the window outside the kindergarten.
There was a skunk out by the shed or the garage, and I was trying to get my dog back from the skunk, and I was quite a ways from him, probably 20 feet or so. and that skunk sprayed me right in the eyes, and I stunk. But I'd go to school in kindergarten, and they stuck me in a corner because I stunk so bad, and I remember people were calling me Stinky. That was my nickname there for a while, Hey, Stinky. I think Cynthia Herbal probably started there.
My greatest life accomplishment has to be the day I became a grandmother. That's one of the neatest and most rewarding experiences I've ever had.
I think mine is just that of being in a business that I'm of service to people.
Easily, it would have to be to find a woman that loved me as much as I love her, and we've been married over 40 years.
I received an appointment from Governor Frank Keating I served on the commission for Oklahoma Commission for Teacher Preparation.
I had a daughter. I have 3 grandkids, and I really love them. I do.
Being mom and wife to a wonderful family, there's just not anything I can think of that has brought me more happiness. Next to that is the fact of really getting to open 2 schools, one in public school and one in private Christian education.
That I always remained true to myself and stayed myself, kept my morals and integrity in a world that was, always wanting to change you to be somebody else or something else.
I really feel like I have been successful in about everything that I've done. Not saying that there hadn't been some setbacks and some screw-ups, and had a big part in building the Hooker softball field out there, along with one of our other fellow classmates, Alan Brown. There was 5 or 6 of us needed a place to play softball on the First National Bank softball team, so we made a deal with the school on the old Frank Parks property. Leased it for $1 a year, and we built that softball field out there so we would have a place to practice and play on. Since all of us are a lot older now, we ended up finally giving that back to the school, and the school is utilizing it now for their girls' fast-pitch softball program out there, so there was a lot of good came out of that.
Raising 2 boys, they are both godly young men. They have both served our country, and one a Marine and one is still in the Air Force.
My greatest accomplishment has been living a good life and a full life and trying to be a good person. And certainly I've made mistakes along the way, and I don't live with regret. I just live with lessons learned. And my biggest accomplishment is raising my 2 kids pretty much by myself.
One of my greatest accomplishments in that I have been blessed with the opportunity to be near my parents through their life's changes to the end of their lives.
First grade, I had Mrs. Eggleston, I think it was Harlan before, loved her as a teacher. She was wonderful.
She had these monkeys, alphabet monkeys. And I think that's the only reason I learned the alphabet, was because I like to look at all those monkeys.
A cohort of mine was going to become a pastor, and he taught me how to run by the girls as they were swinging, roll on the ground, and you could look up her dress. And I'll be forever grateful to Joe Finfrock for that great advice.
Second grade teachers, Mrs. Rexus and Mrs. Fowler. Oh, you don't want to be in Mrs. Fowler's class. She is so mean.
She was very strict, and I was terrified of her.
I think I got out of my seat or something, and I got a SWAT, and then I didn't get to go out for recess with everybody else. I had to sit. And when I got home, I got more than a SWAT.
I can't remember who, but I think we all got sent to the principal's office for taunting or tormenting. No, the word is bullying. We bullied a young lady. And Mr. Barnett took care of the situation and sent us back to the room, and we were very nice to her for the rest of the year.
Mrs. Rexus was our teacher, and us boys decided it'd be a good idea to break up some crayons and, pull the wrapper off of them and break them up and use them for pea shooters. Mike West shot one. It ricocheted off at the back of the blackboard and hit Ms. Rexus in the back of the head. And she immediately wanted to know who did that, and Mike West wouldn't admit that he was the one who did it, and so we all got licks, and at recess we all beat up Mike West.
My greatest life accomplishment has been being a mom, I believe. That's what I've always wanted to do, is be a mother. And I just enjoyed my kids growing up.
To me, the most important has to do with leading people to Christ, and we've had the opportunity to do that a lot. Then you couple that with all the work we've done overseas, I can't think of anything that's more important to me than that.
Meridian Wind Energy Project that I spearheaded and made happen out in the Oklahoma Panhandle, and put together about 60,000 of acres for this wind farm. And I started it. I met people in the beginning. I educated myself. That's my biggest accomplishment in life. Well, it's most important because it's my hometown that I did this for.
Certainly those things that we hope that we've done is grow, particularly spiritually. Community has been important, and I've been involved in civic organizations, a number of those. I was on the school board for a while.
I have 2 sons, 5 grandchildren, and that's been the greatest accomplishment that I've had.
Oh, and I have to say my children. And I hate to disappoint the class below me, but I never achieved being the dictator of China like they predicted.
So I've been able to do banking business with some world famous people, but the greatest accomplishment is a 4-letter word that I hear regularly, and it's called Papa, P-A-P-A, and I've got 8 voices that say it.
I can honestly say I'm proud of the way the boys turned out.
My greatest accomplishments was having Irene and Tiffany.
I'm proud of my naval service, putting myself through school at San Diego State and getting my degree, getting my job with the telephone company and making it a career.
I think this was 3rd grade. I got on the bus with Joe Finfrock and went home with him, much to his mother's surprise. And then she called my mom. That was worthy of a spanking, I'm pretty sure.
3rd grade was Miss Montine Montgomery. I used to worry about Miss Montgomery because she never ate. She always drank a glass or a can of Metro-Cal. And she would read to us after lunch, and she always had one of us rubbing her shoulders or sometimes brushing her hair.
And really, truly, she kind of helped me work out some of my shyness. I was very shy.
Mark Loring had broke the 2nd grade window out with a rock. Well, he wasn't in the same 3rd grade class with me. I was in Mrs. Montgomery's class. So she's berating me about the glass breakage, which I knew I didn't do.
Collie did something stupid again.
And I'd make some smart aleck remark back to her, and she got so furious she had me move my desk back next to hers, and the whole time she was swatting me, spanking me.
And she went to work on him with one of those little balls on a string deal, paddle deal. Blood was going everywhere, but she kept on beating him, and he was just smiling.
Her hand's bleeding, she's crying, and she left the room even.
Fourth grade, Mella Wells, sweet lady.
4th grade with Mrs. Westcott. I do remember she had a ruler, and she would whack you on the knuckles with it if you did something inappropriate.
We got to do fun things in class.
Brought her an apple one day and put it on her desk. Shoot, halfway through class, she did something, Joe went up there, took a bite of the apple, turned it around. She never knew it.
I won 4th grade spelling championship by defeating Meredith Metcalf. I do remember she misspelled the word fish, F-I-S-H, and I had spelled it correctly, and I immediately jumped up and started shouting.
Maybe my most embarrassing thing in life is the fact that I didn't get love right until I was about 52.
I ripped my pants from one seam to the other. And Meredith Metcalf happened to catch on to it. And so did the rest of them. And so that was a little embarrassing, but you know, I've gotten over it. It hasn't scarred me at all, really.
I was preaching, I don't even remember what I was preaching about, but at some point in the message, I was trying to say the word condominium and couldn't get it out. And so it came out something like apartment.
Karen and I went to Europe together with a group, a tour. We locked our room key for the hotel. And I said, I'll run down to the hotel lobby and talk to the desk and get another key. And when I came back, Karen was standing at the door that we thought was our room, and there was a huge guy that was trying to pull her into his room. And I'm over there and trying to explain to him, and he's like, oh, you want to come too? And it got a little, it was not only embarrassing, it was almost a little scary. So
we were at a restaurant in Oklahoma City years and years ago. Went to use the restroom and came out of the restroom not knowing that I had about 5 feet of toilet paper stuck to the bottom of my shoe. The waiter then made a big deal of it, and everybody started clapping and looking, and finally I realized that I was trailing toilet paper behind me all the way back to the table.
I went to a management meeting in Dallas, and at noon we had lunch catered in, and everybody, tables of 6 people sitting around. Well, I had one of the senior VPs sitting next to me, and he said something about, you excited? I said, I'm just really tired of seeing Duke in it all the time. Because I think they'd won the previous, I don't know, couple of years at least. And he said, you don't like him? And I thought, oh boy. I said, did you go to Duke? And he goes, no. He said, what do you dislike about them? I said, it's not that I dislike them. I want to see some new blood, and I don't care much for Coach Krzyzewski. The guy had been Coach Krzyzewski's roommate for 4 years at West Point, and he told me he was the finest human being he'd ever met in his life. I could feel the sweat running down my back.
Anyways, I went to the bathroom, did my deal, and got my penis zipped up in my zipper. And it hurt. But that was maybe my most embarrassing thing that no one saw other than me.
3 other ladies and I would go to Weight Watchers in Liberal. Those ladies like to shop at Walmart. Before we left, I said, I need to go to the bathroom. So there's a little girl standing by the bathroom door, so I just walked in. I hear this groan, like a man's groan, and I thought, oh my gosh, I went in the men's bathroom. I just darted out of the bathroom. And my friend said, you went in the men's bathroom? And I said, yes. And she goes, didn't you see the urinals? And I said, I did on my way out.
In 5th grade, we had a man teacher. That was the first man teacher that we had, Mr. Brumley.
That was an experience because there weren't many male teachers.
5th grade was Mrs. Parm.
A baking pan with the cap on it. I had that cap in my mouth, and I had pulled that pin around. Perfect timing. just when he walked back in the door, that thing slipped out of my hand, and somehow that pin shot clear across the room and hit him in the chest. Okay, Tom Fisher, let's go to the office.
5th grade was unique because I was out of it for a semester. I was going to school here at home because I had had surgery.
And she was at home and she was on an intercom system.
Normally, Mrs. Parham turned off the speaker, so I couldn't have called in. Didn't hear anything going on in the classroom, and you all didn't hear me. But that particular day, it was left on.
We didn't know about it till Judy called us.
And thanks to Judy, that's how we found out about it.
So we went up at the time and asked our teacher what was going on. And she explained to us that, President Kennedy had just been assassinated.
Classes were shut down. We went to all-purpose room.
They rolled this little black and white television into the gym.
We saw the broadcast and reporting.
The news as it unfolded.
The whole school went in there and watched it on TV.
And we couldn't believe it. It was like a shock to everyone.
Very stunned, knew something huge had happened to our country.
It was an unbelievable experience.
I knew it was a tragedy.
I didn't believe it was happening in the United States. I thought, how does this happen in the United States? We're the safest country in the world.
It was like a sadness, and kind of a wonderment of why somebody would do something like that,
I just couldn't think of why that happened to our president.
And I remember looking around the room and all the teachers were crying.
I was just baffled that somebody could do it, and mad.
We didn't understand at that point the impact that was going to have on the country and just American history in general.
I had rheumatic fever, and I was in Oklahoma City. I'd spent about 9 weeks in the hospital there. I remember watching his funeral and that caisson going down the street towards Arlington Cemetery.
And of course, you remember the aftermath.
I knew even as a child that it was a day that we would all remember forever.
It's one of those moments in time that just sticks with you, it sticks with you the rest of your life.
Because I think most people that were there and alive during that time remember exactly where they were and exactly what they saw when that happened.
I can remember that. That was a big deal, and that was a major turning point in our society.
It's an experience that we've never seen it again, and I pray we don't.
It was in 1964 and a half. It revolutionized the industry.
The boys all wanted one.
Wirt had a Mustang that he ran through Lois McMahon's house. Joe Finfrock had one that he wrecked.
My brother had a 67, many nice rides in that little Mustang.
My sister had a Mustang. It was a lot of fun.
Well, my cousin actually bought one of the originals. He wished he'd have kept it.
First one that I knew of and got to ride in was a 66. I believe that belonged to Steve Teal.
The first one I ever saw was Johnny Bob Metcalf got one.
And that was just the coolest car ever.
The Mustang is a great classic car.
People who have Mustangs, particularly the older ones, are really proud of those.
And I think they're the most fun car I've ever driven.
art teacher was. Fargo, maybe? That sound
Farrago?
right? Yeah.
Farrago?
Farrago, yeah, there you go. There you go, Farrago. I remember he was big and he roughed a couple of miscreant youths up, gave us paddling for something I'm sure we didn't do, but we didn't have an appeal system at that time, so it didn't matter.
We had kangaroo court, where there were classmates that decided what your fate was. If I talked too much, I was going to have to wear a sign around my neck to the cafeteria that said I talk too much.
Hatching the chickens in science.
Incubated eggs and had chicks come out of the eggs and stuff, and people got grossed out by that.
And he took one of the eggs out of the incubator, and of course Mr. Farrago he liked to joke a lot anyway, so he made a big deal about, let's see what's going on. He cracked the egg open and dropped out the developing chick in a little bowl, and we were all standing there, and I was standing next to Diane Lassiter, and as soon as she saw the little developing chick drop in the bowl, she fainted. And when she fainted, she happened to be standing right next to the trash can, and she kind of halfway landed in the trash can. And so that kind of took Mr. Farrago's thunder away.
Mrs. Adams was our 6th grade teacher, and I would just watch her as she talked to the class, and I started imitating her. And so the kids thought that was pretty funny. I had imitated her one day. Well, we were out at recess on the playground, and several of the kids came over and said, "Nancy, do Mrs. Adams." So I go into my imitation of her, and then I turn around and she's standing behind me. And I said, "Oh, Mrs. Adams, I'm so sorry." And she was laughing so hard. She said, "That was great." So I just loved her from then on.
Do you still do Mrs. Adams?
I'm not going to do it. I'll do it in private. I'll do it for Mike Dunnigan. He always asks me, "Would you do Mrs. Adams?"
I think there's going to be a special performance at the reunion.
I had a lot of fun going to elementary school. There were some moments that were less than what I would have chosen.
Remember going in grade school underneath to the bomb shelter, practicing that from time to time.
Had a great principal, Mr. Barnett was the principal the whole time we were there.
Square dances in gym, we would learn to square dance, and that was a lot of fun.
Most of our class, we added some over the years, but for the biggest part, most of them were all kids that grew up here, and it was a lot of fun.
We were ready to see what junior high was going to be like and stuff like that too.
As I believe in 6th grade, my mom was one of the homeroom mothers, and we had one of our parties, whether it was Valentine's Day or something. One of the games they had us play was musical chairs, and I took off across the room to get that one remaining desk, and I got it. I got it really well. It slid about 4 feet, hit the wall, and tumbled over backwards, and I was pinned between the desk and the wall, and everyone was so stunned. My mother had to come over and get me up out of that embarrassing situation, and that was when we were expected to wear dresses all the time.
Clark used to always play tricks on me. Well, his boss from headquarters came in to visit us one time, and Clark was taking me around and introduced me to everybody, and brought him up and introduced me to him. So he leaned down, he pulled out one of my dresser drawers and pulled out 2 beer bottles and set them on my desk.
When I was going to classes at Oklahoma State, in front of the library, it was paved with bricks. And any time you got ice, you could skate across it easier. You could walk across it. And there was a low wall where young men would sit. I sprawled out. I think I just went down on my hands and knees. So I didn't go all the way down, but my books and papers went everywhere. One of them got up to help me pick those books up. I want to, y'all just sit there and watch me. And I think it's not necessarily embarrassment. It made me mad.
We were in a restaurant one day, and I snuggled up to a man that I did not know. And I did not know that till I snuggled up to him. And I said to him, honey, I don't know what I want. And his response to me was, well, darling, you can have whatever you want. And I was embarrassed to death.
One occasion in law school, throughout the year you get the opportunity to recite a case, and the professor called on me, and wow, I just completely blew him away with my answer. In fact, he stopped class and he turned to the rest of the class and said, ladies and gentlemen, this is how you brief a case. Well done, Mr. Dunnigan. Well, I left immediately in my mind and was someplace in Tahiti probably, while my professor was formulating about a 20-minute question. And at the end of that 20-minute speaking, he asked me, what do you think about that, Mr. Dunnigan? To which I responded, could you repeat the question? And broke up the class. They thought it was pretty funny. Professor did not think it was so funny, but I think they bought me some beers after that.
We were in Tennessee working with a food pantry out in the country looking for families, and we come across a church camp. And the lady we were working with wanted to go visit the church camp. Well, they had just had lunch, they had leftovers, so they invited us to come in and have lunch. When we were getting ready to leave, the lady we were working with had an assistant. Her name was Tanya, and she was gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous. She had managed to find a little container of Jell-O pudding, but she didn't have a spoon. And she was complaining to her boss. She said, if you don't find me a spoon, I'm going to have to eat this with my finger. To which I immediately blurted out, oh, can I watch?
I remember 7th grade was an adjustment because we crossed that street. We had Daryl Smithers. He was like either just out of the military or maybe he wanted to be in the military, but he scared Charlene to death. She didn't want to go to school the next day.
Smithers Army lined us up like a platoon wearing white t-shirt, white shorts. We had to do these calisthenics, you know, Army style. When the football field was over at the old baseball field, we all got down on our hands and knees, and we crawled the length of that field picking sandburrs. You couldn't do that today.
David Corley and I stole Steve Teal's. He had a little blue Falcon. And Corley said, let me drive. He didn't go 300 feet and overcorrected and whipped it over in the ditch and rolled it. And the next day at lunch, Corley and I went by to look at that car, and Steve Teal was up above that bulldog, you know, that's in the main entrance. He flips that window open. It's you guys!
We went over to Texhoma. We were coming back, going through Guyman, and I don't remember who did this, but somebody rolled the window down on the bus and threw a jock strap out, and it ringed this lady's antenna on her car. And anyway, she called the school, and anyway, we were all lined up down there. And when we all got called on the carpet for that.
I moved to Hooker halfway through 7th grade.
And I never will forget Catherine Steinley, where everybody was shooting maize out of straws or out of their pens.
In Mr. Lamer's class,
Catherine raised her hand. He said, "What is it, Catherine?" She said, "Well, I think we're going to have a good maize crop this year."
I think we had like 11 boys in the class.
And we all got licks.
And Mr. Lamer could swing it pretty good.
And we did need a new activity bus, and it was wonderful to have the new one. It was so much more comfortable, and the kids were so excited to have that. Yeah, it was great.
They had like a contest to what the bus was going to be named. And somehow or another, I think it did come out, the Bulldog Special.
It was a lot nicer than the old one was.
When you're worn out after a football game, it's so nice.
It's great to ride in.
I had forgotten about that. We did get that when we were in junior high. We put so many miles on those buses, didn't we?
You know, we only got to ride on it when we were on the bus in band or going to choir, because only the high school football, basketball teams got to use it. It was slick.
It had like real seats instead of the bench seats, and it didn't break down every time you went somewhere.
Not worry about hopefully as many breakdowns and that type of thing.
It was air conditioned. It was really comfortable to ride in, and I thought that was just the neatest thing yet.
But that bus, they should have parked that somewhere, and that could have been a statue, you know. But it hauled our pep club. We had 100 girls plus, and that bus hauled us, and I don't know if they took yellow buses with us, but wherever we went, I think we represented our school well.
Probably the most unique thing that I did throughout my life was I trained for and completed a marathon. And not everybody gets to do that, 26.2 miles.
How long did it take you to run the marathon?
4 hours and 1 minute.
I worked at Walmart in Guymon, and Chris Ledoux came and I met him in person.
I've been kicked out of a few nice places with Mike Dunnigan, but other than that, that's about it.
You too, huh?
Oh, yeah.
That person, who will remain nameless even if he is a funeral director, is telling the truth.
And I was at hot dog feed out the swimming pool. Bailey showed up. Hadn't seen Bailey in years. This is 4th of July, and he said, "What are you going to be doing Christmas?" "Don't really have any plans, Lonnie." He said, "There'll be a airline ticket in the mail in 2 weeks. Come and see me for 2 weeks over Christmas." I can honestly say I don't think too many people have had the opportunity to go on a nuclear submarine when it's in dock, put your hands on the torpedoes, sit in the periscope seat, and take a look around.
In about 9th grade, Jane Ann J. Rowe became Miss America. She had a big concert in the Oklahoma Panhandle in Guymon, and we were going to play several numbers which she was going to conduct. Jane J. Rowe walks out. It was just absolutely so exciting to see her. Lots of applause from the audience and a prolonged ovation. And she turns around and she raises her baton, and then she looks at me and she goes, "You may sit down now." Somehow, in watching her, I had missed the whole signal.
My boss, Clark, we had just been awarded the Southwest Asia contract. He says, "I need you to run out to Tinker Air Force Base real fast, pick up that contract and get back here as soon as possible," and everything. But when I went into the building to go and pick up the contract, I forgot to sign in at the visitor's registration office. So they called the office, of course, and everything. And when I got back, Clark says, "What's this I hear about you rushing the gate?"
I am maybe the only one in our class that went into politics, per se. Here about 4 or 5 years ago, I was so disgusted with the way things were going in our government on a national level, I decided that I was going to make a difference, even if it was only at the local level. So anyway, whenever the Ward 4 councilman position came up, and for the city of Hooker, anyway, I ran against a retired chief of police here, and I won.
Well, I would have to say, when I was in Hawaii in 2004, visiting Bunny and Dick Arth from Westlock, Alberta. They lived there 6 months out of the year. And my good friend and I took them out for dinner to Don Ho Show, the Don Ho Show in Waikiki, Hawaii. Well, little did I know that Dick talked to the concierge and said, we have a girl here that I think could do some Patsy Cline on your stage. Do you mind if she gets up there and sings with your band, with Don Ho's band? And they said, not at all. They came back and said, Terry, you're on. The concierge called me to the stage, and Don Ho was sitting right behind me. His band was right there. And they said, what do you want to sing, Terry? And I said, Crazy, key of G, let's hit it. 1, 2, 3, boom. We went, and I sang. I met Don Ho. He liked what I did.
We were burning wheat stubble off so that we could double crop it back. And smoke was up in the air, and there was a photographer in Hooker, and he saw that smoke out there, and so he started driving for it. He shot a generation picture of my grandfather, my dad, me, and my sons, and that picture made the National Geographic 1984 issue of September.
When I was in 5th grade, Bill Haney was our PE teacher. He made me walk the balance beam, and I fell off at the end and broke my arm, my left arm.
Did you beat him up?
No, but I wanted to. I told him I didn't want to get on it. Oh, I got your hand.
Spent 2 years as superintendent of schools at Adams. Position opened up for a principal's job. My wife and I thought that would be a good move to move into Hooker and be closer to a church and so on. So I applied for the job, and Ralph Rich was the superintendent. And he come out to Adams School and interviewed the two of us and offered us the job that morning.
I was in Monte Vista, Colorado, but I thought I wanted to move into the bigger time. So I had an opportunity to move into Pueblo. One of the biggest mistakes I ever made. I hated Pueblo, but Lefty Smith, he happened to come through. He was in Colorado at the time. He said, Max, are you interested in going back to Oklahoma? I said, I certainly am. He said, Al, my wife is from Turpin. And he said, that's where we're going, and I'll look around while I'm there. This was on, Thanksgiving or Christmas vacation. So sure enough, on the way back, he stopped by and he said, I've got you a job. I said, where? He said, Hooker, Oklahoma. So me and him came to Hooker at the same time, and I was the football coach and he was my assistant.
I do remember 8th grade that we got separated from the girls, and we thought that was the end of the world.
Oh yes, I think we're all a little different because of that. I think it worked as stunted our maturation in knowing the other sex as we should have.
I remember that. I don't remember a lot about it, so we must have adjusted somehow, but I do remember classes with just girls in them.
But then it turned out that in part of our classes was quite a bit of fun, not having girls in there.
We were having babies late into our 20s, early 30s, and that wasn't, it's common now, but it wasn't then. I don't know what it did, the boys probably know.
We had a group of guys that were going to start up a band, a rock and roll band. We kind of thought that's when we had hair, and we thought that we maybe could, emulate the Beatles. But we were over in the all-purpose room at the grade school practicing, and the superintendent, Mr. Rich at the time, came in, and we no longer had drums that we could use, so our band broke up.
One thing stands out is Gary Flint setting my coat on fire in English class.
Back when those butane lighters came out, well, they had an adjustment on it where you could make the flames shoot out like that. And Spot was sitting there kind of hunched over on his desk like that, so I just opened that thing up and aimed it at it. Of course, it started smoking, and of course he jumped up and started trying to put it. Of course, we all got in trouble, got licked.
that was kind of a funny deal,
And I did break an arm playing basketball. I remember that, and that was probably in junior high. We were over to all-purpose room dunking basketballs off of a mini tramp and broke an arm.
We got to go to state band contests because we had made a one at district.
It was just a beautiful campus. I didn't even know Chickasha was there.
I don't remember how we placed in junior high, but I do remember not well.
Not well.
I know I don't have a medal or a trophy anywhere.
Mr. Stout stepped off the podium and says, "We sure came a long ways to mess up like that." So
oh.
He was kind, but I don't think he was pleased.
I've heard of boys crawling over the fence at the Hooker swimming pool.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Anyways, you're not supposed to be breaking into a swimming pool, but it's not that hard.
We found a weakness in the fence.
Everybody would pull the chain link fence up and sneak into the pool at night.
Or some of the guys could crawl over too.
We'd go out to the swimming pool, hop the fence, go swimming of an evening.
I would never do anything like that.
I don't know of anyone personally who ever did that. So help me God. Or is that the right hand? I can't remember.
Does that mean you never did it yourself?
I did not say that.
Yes.
Were you ever in on that?
A little bit.
Actually, I don't know that I ever participated in it, but I certainly knew who was involved in it and what all they were doing. There's some great stories.
Well, it was nice and warm.
Mel was hiding in the bathroom, and he scared them.
And I really think he held that over our heads all the way through. Because he was going to tell our parents, and mine would have killed me.
And Mel looks at me, he's going, "Oh my God, Lana." I said, "What?" He said, "What am I going to tell your father?" I looked at him and said, "Tell him you caught me breaking into the swimming pool. He knows me."
That was after hours, probably around 9:30.
And my father just laughed about it.
Doyle, it's against the law to go over on private property, city property, after dark and crawl over the fence and go swimming, and a lot of times in your nakedity.
Nakedity?
Naked?
Oh, well, I don't remember that.
My unique life experience had to do with my grandson, who's now 21 years old. At the time, he was about 18 months, I believe, lived in Mississippi. We were going to go pick him up and bring him to Satanta. Rick was going to go with me, and he said, "I've got to go back to work. Do you want to fly to Mississippi?" We were in Oklahoma City with our daughter at the time. So I get on the plane. It was at night. Flew from Oklahoma City to Houston International Airport. The weather was so bad that the plane would not take, couldn't take off from Houston. And I thought, oh my gosh, what do I do? I was terrified because I'd never gone anywhere by myself. Well, there was this nice gentleman standing next to me, and he said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "I'm looking for my luggage." And he said, "Oh, it's in another place." So he showed me where the luggage was. In the meantime, while we're riding on this tram together, we start visiting, and I tell him my situation, and he said, well, he said, my flight was canceled too. He said, I live like, a couple miles from the airport. You can just come stay with us. I'll call my wife. And I was like, okay. I just felt at peace that, he's there to help me. And so anyway, he called his wife, but he was on the phone for quite a while, and I thought, oh my gosh, what am I getting into? This is kind of scary. So anyway, he comes back outside. We get in his car. We drive to his house. His wife was the sweetest person. They had 3 little kids. She was a registered nurse. I ended up spending the night at their house. That's how bad I wanted to see a grandchild.
I meet in Austin with, used to be Rick Perry, and then now it's Greg Abbott and his wife Cecile and Mike Huckabee, rubbing elbows with some pretty famous politicians.
The time where I told the class that unfortunately JFK had been shot.
Moving to Boulder, Colorado from the farm. I visited Boulder, Colorado once for a week, and my wife and I came back to Hooker and were there a short while, and the back door of that house blew open at Lonnie Bailey's mother's yellow home out there. And we walked in that evening, and it looked like an old abandoned house that had been abandoned for years. The dirt was like, it was so thick. And my wife sat down and started crying, and I said, did you like that little town we were in Boulder? Did you like that? And she goes, yeah. And I said, what do you think about moving there?
I have been on the mission field, and I don't know how many people do that, but everyone needs to sometime, because when you come off of the field, you realize how blessed you really are.
And 2 days after graduation, I believe we graduated on May 17th, but I landed in Madrid, Spain. I worked saving money for my sophomore, my junior, and my senior year. I had a cousin that went through a divorce, joined the Air Force, and I knew wherever Jim was sent, I wanted to go visit. And so I was there till I flew home July 3rd. And that life experience taught me so much.
The music building was state of the art. It was something to be so proud of, and we were proud of it. And I don't know that it made us a whole lot better, but we thought it did.
And it was quite an improvement over the little one over across the street in the grade school area.
That was a big deal because it was not very often that schools got to either build new buildings or build additions.
We were all excited about that, and remember first time going in.
I just remember how awesome it was. I mean, we had band in one part of it, music in the other.
I think we had to carry a bunch of equipment in there too. I do remember that, like slave labor, child slave labor, as a matter of fact. I think that's against the law.
that was something else to be in that spacious room.
There was a sense of pride in that our school had that facility.
Mr. Stout and Ms. Flanagan deserved it.
Oh my gosh, I was so excited to have, because otherwise I had been pushed around from one place to another, upstairs on the 3rd floor of the old building. We had our music class, then I had another class down in the basement of the auditorium. So I was so excited, and so the band also. And acoustically, it's wonderful too. It was built right, even though it's quite a long time ago, but it's still, I'm sure they're very happy with it. And I'm very happy with the way things are going musically in Hooker now too. That's great.
Well, I was thinking about it, and I came through Hooker in March of my freshman year. Hooker High School was my 10th school.
I think it was at Norman, and it was cold, I remember that. And Daryl bet Mike Dunnigan. Mike was to get into the pool, and it was cold. And I think he walked on water, but he got in and out of the pool pretty quick.
I have no comment about that. And that wasn't my idea either. Okay, it was.
There was a young lady out sunbathing, and she was face down and undid the snap on her top. But then Daryl, I think, is the one, if I remember correctly, who went and dumped water on that girl.
Threw a glass or a bucket actually of cold water.
She came up real fast and forgot something.
When she raised up, her top fell off. I was embarrassed for her. That's all I got to say.
All the guys thought that was pretty funny.
My mother always threw birthday parties for me, and I always had a slumber party. And so all the girls came over that I just met. I made a bunch of new friends, and we decided it would be a good idea to freeze our bras. So we all put our bras in my fridge.
I had the opportunity for about the last 15 years or so to go into prison, which is no surprise, but to come out of prison, which is a big surprise. And I do that every week. So I guess that's probably about the most unique thing that's happened to me. And I get to meet some interesting men in there, and we talk about the Bible and talk about life experiences. Boy, it just breaks my heart to hear some of their stories.
What we have, again, enjoyed over the years is we've had our trips to Israel, to New Zealand, gone on bike trips where we've been up in Maine, Arcadia National Park, and biked that, and Katy Trail in Missouri that we really enjoyed.
I was in Paris, France. I went there to celebrate my 50th birthday, and I went with two friends from Denver. They met me there, and I got pickpocketed in Paris. And I pulled my billfold out to put in my RER ticket, dropped my billfold back into my bag, and all of a sudden there was this man rushing through the turnstiles behind us, saying something in French. And we got out, and I went to put my ticket back into my billfold, and my billfold was gone.
We were in New York City doing a big food distribution one Christmas. And Hillary Clinton, who was senator at the time, came to our event. She spoke at the press conference. And when she got ready to leave, there was a formation of Secret Service agents escorting her, and they were taking her away. A little girl about 10 years old come up behind and says, "Can we get a picture?" And Hillary says, "Sure," and she turns around. Well, when she turned around, it put those Secret Service agents into a tizzy. They had to get their formulation together and shift and everything. And one of them was talking to a young lady, and I really thought he was doing this. I thought that's what I saw. So I go walking up to him. Well, I get up to him. He puts his hand in my chest and gives me a firm but gentle shove and says, "Please." And I threw up my hands and I said, "I'm sorry." And I turned around and walked away as fast as I could.
Working for XTO Energy,
I had progressed to the point that, well, I had a job here in the city at that point, which allowed me to travel really nice because we used company plane, which is Gulfstream G4, very nice. And we had left Rock Springs, Wyoming to go to Gillette. And on the way there, I asked the pilots, I said, can you fly up the Devil's Tower? They didn't know where it was, so it was ironic because the two pilots were sitting there with a road map, and I'm sitting there in the middle looking at it with them, and I looked up out the window and I go, there it is. I mean, here it is out in the middle of nowhere. He goes, how low you want to go? I said, let's go down, let's circle it. He put that thing down and circled it twice. Close enough you could have taken a picture of people on top. I was absolutely fascinated.
Vietnam was kind of scary for the guys.
I think there was a concern that a lot of us were going to be drafted and have to go there.
My intentions after high school were to go to the military. With Vietnam going on, and the word was, you just don't join the military.
I wasn't too worried about it because my number was not right.
I remember what my number was. It was 221.
And I had a high number, I think 300 and some.
My number was 341. And I think Terry Kilgore's was 1.
Having a draft number of number 1, I was going to have to make some decisions.
My birthday was like number 4.
There were several kids from Hooker that went and served and did their time in Vietnam.
I remember one time we were talking, I think in Coach Harris' class, wondering maybe someday we'll be able to analyze what the Vietnam War means or what the results of that were.
I don't think it was worth anywhere close to the 60,000 lives that were lost in that. I don't see what we've gained from it.
But I do remember the Vietnam War, and I was really glad when we got out of there.
I had an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. for the first time, and that was one of the things I wanted to see was the Vietnam Memorial. When you see that, see all the people that were killed and all of those names and just see that tribute to them, I think it becomes more real.
But we were lucky enough, no one went. No one went.
It's overwhelming to see an indoor swimming pool of that size.
And they started synchronized swimming.
The pool I loved.
I thought I might learn how to swim. Didn't happen.
Remember Lefty Smith? He was kind of in charge of part of the PE in the pool, and he had a big announcement. He said, all right, here's the deal. He said, If you don't pee in my pool, I won't swim in your stool.
Remember Kathy Frazier was the swimming instructor, and Patsy tells me we were all Google-eyed over her. We was.
Great facility.
Very progressive, I thought, for a little town like Hooker, Oklahoma to have such a facility.
Man, that was a neat deal.
And to think that it was built, like in the 60s, I believe, for us, I think is a big tribute to the town and how it supported the school.
I taught in Guyman for one semester, and then I got a job at Booker, Texas. I found out about the job at Hooker, and I applied for it, and I got it. In that room 214, I don't know why they did this, I'm not an architect, but the windows and the radiators were on the same wall. And the boys liked to sit there, I guess maybe to look out the windows, I don't know, but they would always perform their own little experiments with gum. But they would at least lay their gum across the ribbing of the radiator. But it really just made the room smell like green apple or bazooka or whatever their gum was. I can see faces along that wall, and I see Chuck and Mike and Bob and Joe. I think some of those were the ones with the gum. Now Joe was uphill. Well, one time I was not in the mood, or he was especially naughty, I don't know. But I said, "You're gonna have to go to the office." And so Mr. Longest met him at the office door, escorted him into the inner chamber, I found out later that they had shared a bag of M&Ms and talked football. And when the bell rang for Joe to go to the next class, Mr. Longest said, "Now, Joe, just try to get along with Miss Fowler. Just try."
And one of the memories that I have, I used to say, I did take Spanish in high school. Of course, I must say I'm ashamed that we had Heidi Fowler. Heidi Bostwick was our teacher, and it was her first year, and we abused her terribly bad.
No, Bob, no, I was not abused, but I think you were one of the ones in the row, the ones who laid gum on the radiator. I think you're one of those.
He used to do those film strips all the time right after lunch, and it was impossible to stay awake from me. And I was in there one day and had my chin propped up on a book, and of course I was asleep, and the book went flying, and I fell over, and the papers went flying. It was just oh, that was embarrassing. Yeah, that was embarrassing.
I said, "Mr. Rich, I need I need one of these new weight machine type things, and they're well, how much are they?" I said, "They're about $4,000." And he said, and I can't make the facial expression, but it was like, "Tell you what, hotshot, you win some games," and he called me a hotshot. He said, "I'll tell you, hotshot, you win some games, and we'll get you that thing." And by golly, he did.
Don Potter was a good math teacher. I thought he was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed his classes. There was a student in one of his classes who thought it would be funny if they took a Playboy fold-out and put it on the front of his desk during class. And Mr. Potter would always leave the room, and so that's when they put this picture up there. And then Mr. Potter came back and taught the rest of the class, not knowing that there was a naked woman on the front of his desk. lo and behold, someone ratted that person out, and they wound up in the principal's office. And someone told me that they remembered that Tom Harris, football coach, was serving as a witness where the unnamed student got spanked, and he wasn't witnessing anything other than the foldout. I do remember hearing about that.
FHA girls were going to Oklahoma City to a convention, and a bus driver got sick. And Mr. Rich called me and said, "Max, would you drive a big Trailway bus to Oklahoma City?" I said, "I never have." He said, "Well, take it out for a spin, drive around the block a couple times, you'll be ready to go." So I did. At the time, T-shirts were being stenciled for the first time with various wording on them. We got to Oklahoma City and I pulled the bus up in the parking lot. All the FHA girls got off and they had a white T-shirt on with a blue hooker right across the chest. They filed off the bus, and about 15 minutes later, here they were coming back. "I need my suitcase, I need my suitcase." I said, "What's the matter, girls? You should hear the names those people are calling us." See, that's how naive it was in a small community. They thought nothing whatsoever about it. But I remember that. It was really funny, you know. You go all the way to Oklahoma City and people make fun of you.
Main Street experience of Hooker, Oklahoma. Wow, what a deal.
If you hope to have any kind of fun, you had to go to Main Street.
Oh yeah, Gladys Avenue.
That was the place to be.
There's a lot of things happen on Main Street.
If you didn't have anything to do, you dragged Main and Hooker.
That's what we did.
For nightlife.
What we did all night long, you know, until we had to go home.
Dragon Main was a big event.
Went up and down that street. I probably have my ruts embedded in that pavement.
I have put thousands of miles on my old Falcon.
Honk at everybody, wave at everybody.
And every time we'd meet a car, even though we'd just seen them 2 minutes before, we'd honk.
Back in the day, though, we sat on the Ford parking lot, or we sat down at the Flint grocery store parking lot.
And then sometimes we would get told to leave the parking lot.
We get out and sit on the hood of our cars and turn some music on and talk for hours upon hours.
Usually revolved around girls or beer or sports.
Visit and wave at people as they were going by. That was the thing because we didn't have anything else to do.
Always about Dragon Main and going to get a drink at Al's.
And you could still get a soft drink for a dime.
I remember shooting bottle rockets across Main Street at each other during 4th of July.
Laurie's little brown Rambler wagon.
She would drive around, pick everybody up, and we would give her 25 cents or 50 cents, and she would go put a couple of dollars worth of gas in her car and we could drive around all night.
And those memories are shared with a lot of different girls in our class.
And people made fun of it because all the seats laid down flat, and I got teased about that a lot.
Now, why would you get teased about that?
Well, you know, you're in high school and all the seats lay flat. And that was all anybody ever said, but the implication was, yeah, that's got to be like a love machine or something.
I'm surprised Hooker girls would say that.
They did.
Because Hooker girls were always, quote, not that kind of girl.
We weren't that kind of girl. But it was kind of funny to have a car that you could be that kind of girl.
Then there was the Christmas tree incident.
One thing I remember about us going hunting one night, doing a bunch of spotlighting, and we had shot a bunch of rabbits and a skunk, and we decorated the community Christmas tree down there. And then there was all these letters to the editor written about how sacrilegious it was to desecrate the community Christmas tree.
If there was such a thing as a safe place, that was probably it.
But there's a lot of good memories down there of the things, you know, that we pulled on Main Street.
It was a social experience, it was an educational experience, and so much more.
It was a place to get together, share ideas, check each other out, and make other plans. It was good.
Yeah, it was a great thing to go drag Main and to also sit and watch the people drag Main. But that's where everybody gathered.
That's what you did in Hooker, Oklahoma. Drag Main.
It was a real social thing.
It's just part of the whole Hooker experience.
Things that I miss from the old days that we no longer have, probably the darn rotary phone. You know, I kind of liked the mystique of and didn't realize it at the time. You didn't know who called when you were away from home. You didn't know who was calling when they did call. You didn't know, we didn't have, you know, any kind of voicemail system. So just that old-fashioned, I just sometimes wish I just had an old rotary phone so I didn't have to be so informed.
I miss Coca-Cola made with sugar in a glass bottle. I miss that a lot. And I miss vent windows on cars.
I miss the 8-track tape player. That was one of the first systems I had. And when those things would break, I learned how to fix those things and splice those things up. And then how about the turntable and the vinyl records?
I miss vinyl records for some reason.
You're gonna think I'm crazy, but I used to have a silver Cutlass and I had a CB radio because I'd be flying back and forth to Stillwater, America, and I've only had probably 2 tickets in my lifetime, and I attribute that to my CB radio for saving my tail.
Ethics. That's probably the biggest one. You know, people don't have morals anymore.
I miss talking to people over the phone instead of have Facebook. And I'd rather talk on the phone to them to hear their voice.
Being able to go out to the farm or wherever in a small community and do some very simple things, whether it's ride a motorcycle or whatever the case is.
Beaver and Texhoma were the two big rivals in all sports, but especially football.
The Beaver Dusters seem to have that legend of unbeatable.
I remember that game because we never beat them.
There was always so much competition with Beaver.
Beaver was always tough. Beaver and Texhoma.
Beaver in the 60s, they had some state championships and a big run.
The Bulldogs rose to the occasion.
It was a blast. It was an absolute blast. It was our final year at Coach Harris, I believe.
Just at the end of that, to realize that we had finally beaten Beaver was a really great experience.
That was exciting anytime we could beat them.
We worked our tails off on getting ready physically and mentally. I knew when Gain Roberts, when I was taping his ankle, and I looked up at him and he was like, Gain, he was in Gain land. I mean, he was so focused on his leg. And I'm thinking something good is going to happen out of this deal. And because he was really one of our inspirational leaders. And sure enough, it happened. And didn't happen very many times, but it was such a, I don't know that I've ever had a sweeter victory.
Yeah, to beat Beaver, that was quite a deal anymore. I remember that quite well.
Well, we didn't know that was part of the deal when we were a sponsor, that you had to direct the plays. And so when it came time to do it, I said, good Lord, what are we, neither one of us have ever done this before. She said, don't worry about it, I'll do it, you stay home and take care of the kids.
Oh, cheaper by the dozen. I do remember that. I was one of the dozen.
I was a narrator.
I was Lily. I had to wear roller skates.
I had a dog that was in the play, yeah.
All these kids, 12 of us. I had a bit part, so it's really hard to remember exactly.
Gary was the dad. He was perfect.
When we were in Macon, I looked at Patsy and I said, let's go all out tonight. And Heidi Fowler was one of our coaches in that drama thing. And she said, are you going to make this a tearjerker? And I said, I believe we will. We put our whole heart into that play. And I mean, people were boo-hooing and everything else because the main character dies at the end of that play. And I remember the whole cast coming out, and the whole auditorium was full of people, and everybody was giving us a standing ovation, and that was a pretty neat feeling.
The first time I saw a naked girl. Remember the programs they used to put on? We're not going to say who it was. She didn't know the door, and the other girls were holding the door open to the restroom, watching the program going on out there, and all the guys over here. Shit. I mean, that stands out in a young man's mind. I'm sorry, girls.
Judy and I went to Liberal, and we contracted for this band, and whenever it was, 2 weeks, a month later, they showed up to play at our homecoming dance.
But this guy showed up, and I met him out in the hall, and he introduced himself as Chuck Berry. I said, you're not the Chuck Berry that I'm thinking of, are you? He said, I am. He said, I heard I was in Liberal and heard they were having a dance here and a band, and I just wanted to come over and possibly play some and sing for them.
And they were playing, and all of a sudden came out this tall, lanky black gentleman. And I remember particularly Mrs. Caldwell going crazy.
Someone said she was really happy to see Chuck Berry there.
Miss Caldwell just lost it.
Mrs. Caldwell just went bananas.
My wife always liked to tell the story about Chuck Berry. at the dance.
Faculty probably danced more than the students did that night because they really knew who he was and appreciated his music.
And I remember him coming in and everybody goes, Chuck Berry's here.
Yeah, I was there when Chuck Berry showed up.
A black guy in Hooker, and he was singing Chuck Berry type songs, which I didn't really keep up with. I assumed they were, and he'd do his little duck walk.
It was just a neat time. It was exciting to have that happen at Hooker.
And it was really awesome that he came to Hooker.
It's a great, great memory, and I realize what a big deal that was.
Yeah, it's quite a little deal for a little old town.
I just never believed it's him, and if it was, that's getting falling pretty low when you're playing in Hooker.
He must have been in sort of a downturn in his career to be traveling and show up in Hooker. And after that, I recall that he became very, very popular and well known again and highly regarded and loved. And so that was pretty cool.
I know he played at Johnny B. Good.
I remember a music contest that we went to Stillwater, and we went through Gary, Oklahoma, and the girls' bus had stopped in Gary, and we went out of town.
We stopped alongside the road. Do you remember this?
Yes, I'm afraid I do.
He was driving a school bus, a yellow school bus, and a lot of the boys were in that yellow school bus, and I don't know why.
Another learning experience.
And all the boys got out to take the potty break.
Which was okay until a lady comes driving by.
She got quite a view.
And she tried her best to act like she didn't see anything.
That was kind of a memorable trip, just because of that.
That was a rather embarrassing moment. I don't really want to talk about that.
But he was a cool teacher because he'd give you a test, but he'd give you the answers so you'd know.
Mr. Ritz, I think, called me in on is like, he says, I've got a parent that said that you were telling the kids what the questions to the test were. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, is that not a little bit abnormal? Is that not, it almost sounds like you're cheating for the kids. I was like, well, as a matter of fact, that's probably right. I said, here's my deal. This is what I'm going to ask you. This is what I want you to know. Now, how's the best way to get it done? Guess.
The junior prom that we built, we had Mr. Hightower help us, which he helped a lot of the kids throughout the years. He was very talented, but it was psychedelic.
Mr. Hightower always helped us with the proms.
CT working with us, doing a great job.
Mr. Hightower always put a lot of work. You'd always count on him.
What a fantastic man.
The guys literally brought in, they soldered our tabletop decorations, which were painted in fluorescent colors, and we had every black light, I think, in Texas County.
Painting all the backdrops and the walls and the stuff to go along the sides. Wild and crazy.
Egg cartons were amazing to staple to the wall and then spray in fluorescent paint.
The entrance to it, we all put our hands in psychedelic paint, and it was a black wall, so we put our handprints and our footprints there.
When they entered, I remember you had to part the beads.
CT wanted us to go. He had located in Spearman, Texas, 2 huge blacklight spotlights. And so I think it was Squirt and I, if I remember right, drove to Spearman and picked those spotlights up to bring them back so he could arrange them to make all that stuff glow.
We worked and worked and worked on that.
Seemed like everybody pitched in pretty good.
Our class was so good about everybody showing up.
We had a blast.
What I miss from the good old days is just people getting together. They don't do that anymore. When I was growing up and we lived at the natural gas plant, they would have every Friday a musical. And people would come out there and play guitars and sing and visit, and the kids would go play on the playground, and I think those were good days. And so I miss that.
Family time. It's all being intruded on by all the technology and everything. My grandkids want to get on their games. I mean, here I've got all these woods out here. When I was that age, I'd be gone. You wouldn't see me until dark. But kids don't know how to enjoy life. They don't know how to go out and play. And that's a big part of growing up. And playing ugly like I did.
Our technology has taken a lot of our personal communication away. And for younger kids that didn't have the advantage of knowing how important that is, I think it's really robbing them. Things have changed a whole lot for us growing up. I just hope that we don't ever lose personal communication.
Every one of those technological advances were supposed to save us time. When we grew up and we didn't have all those things, we had company over. We sat around the table and ate together and talked together with our neighbors and people from church and things like that. That doesn't happen anymore. All those time-saving devices did was allow us more time to fill our life with other stuff. And some of the stuff we're filling it with isn't as meaningful as what we had when we didn't have all that stuff.
We don't have face-to-face. Write a letter, pick up a phone and call somebody, drive over and visit them. Doyle, you and Terry and I got to do something this last year that I thought was just amazing. We got to go see Mr. Longest. I can't tell you the joy on his face when he saw you and I. He was a little disappointed to see Terry, but he was he was happy to see us. We've lost the art of communication, and it's sad.
Yeah, but the good old days were when people respected each other, I think, more than they do now, adults as well as kids. And those memories of how we had respect for everybody back then, I think, has changed somewhat today. Not that kids aren't good today, but I think it was more embedded in us in that generation than, well, we all did. We all respected our elders. And we could use a little more of that today.
was on the main street, and it was right there where Tri-County used to be, where that old hotel was. It was in that intersection, and I mean, you couldn't get down Main Street, and they would have their speeches and the cheers and start the bonfire. And if I remember right, they had a dummy.
I can remember being a football cheerleader, none of the other cheerleaders knew very much about the game of football. And if they would start, 1st and 10, do it again, and we were on defense, I would have to tell them, okay, guys, we can't do that one right now because we don't have the ball. We can't get a 1st and 10. So they usually relied on me to make sure we were doing the right chants during a football game.
I remember the boys' choir, singing in the boys' choir and having some really good stuff with Mrs. Flanagan.
The second floor of the high school didn't match up with the second floor of the junior high, and so the floor was a sloping floor. And on either side of that, which I'm going to call a breezeway, were these great big windows. But out of every 5 minutes between classes, at least 4.5 of them, the boys were all standing in this one area. The girls would start their ascent, and such pretty girls, pretty dresses. Oh, legs, legs, legs. That's the real reason the boys stood where they did, and I know this because years later, when girls were allowed to wear jeans or pants, the boys weren't interested in standing right there. So I know my theory is correct.
Then why do you call it a theory?
Didn't get to wear the short skirts that we wanted to.
Okay, if your skirt was too short, Mr. Longest didn't like that very well.
If your skirt was too short, you went home.
We had to hold our arms down, and our dresses had to be fingertip or longer. So we would do that, and then we'd roll our skirts up so they'd be a little shorter.
Was that Bull in a China Shop? I believe it was, where these old ladies wanted this police officer to come. We were killing each other just so that we could get the police officer over.
There was a young man who took over when I became violently ill.
I believe that one of our cast members was sick. Was it Mike Dunnigan? And you stepped in for him? Oh, okay, that's what I thought.
Those were fun experiences. Those were things I think all kids should be a part of.
Our prom our senior year, I think, was underwater something. Atlantis, huge fish. It was kind of cool the way they made you feel like you were really underwater. It was a good prom.
Personally, I regretted knowing it was our last prom.
I just remember it was fun. We didn't wear these sexy little dresses. We all had long, kind of looking back now, pretty conservative, kind of boring dresses. So yeah, I went to prom.
I enjoyed all the activities.
Junior high and high school choirs, I loved those.
Hooker didn't just accidentally become the type of school that they were without leadership.
I just hope you guys enjoyed your time. You may not have learned a thing, but I hope you enjoyed your time.
We had a good school system. We really did.
We all had to wear jackets and ties for game day. And we had blue HHS blazers.
I think we brought pride to Bulldog Country.
I was told several times after I retired that when that pep club walked in, that was 10 points, especially in basketball, for the boys, right off the bat. So that everybody was just in awe of our pep club. And I was so proud of that. And then, of course, I had help, a lot of help from the other teachers.
I met somebody that was from, I don't remember, but it was a surrounding town. We played them in basketball. And he said, I was always so jealous because the pep club would come in, we'd rock the house.
It got us all involved, and it raised the school spirit tremendously.
I was so proud of our pep club. I can remember being in Beaver one night on the south side of the gym. And I watched 94 girls march in single file on the north side, all dressed in blue and white, and take their seat on the north side of the basketball court. That's something that, you just remember.
Basketball was a big deal.
Basketball was my favorite.
The intensity level went up when it became district or we were playing Texhoma.
We had some great basketball teams.
Starting when we were freshmen.
Better as sophomores with Dennis Ansley and Charlie Butler and some of those guys that, and the guys a year older than us.
Probably one of the things that I went to the ball game is to watch Sid Hussey, because Sid was a very, very vocal person, and he'd get kicked out of the ball games.
Had some great ball games with Texhoma, some with Laverne.
I remember one game over at Buffalo when Paul Lundgren hit a half-court shot and we beat Buffalo. The district finals, my sophomore year when Laverne beat us, beating Texhoma in the finals of the Panhandle State tournament over there. The Daresette tournament, whenever Jim Lamer was the coach at Daresette, we went down there and they beat us in the finals. There's a lot of good memories of basketball.
Most every year we went to state with usually the girls choir and some ensembles and some, of course, solos. And so all of that I still remember and will love every minute of it always.
We always had amazing musicians.
Trying to get all our stuff on the bus for the band trips.
And there were some good times there, and probably should have been kicked out of school numerous times there.
There was some funny ag trips.
Thank you, school board, for letting us go and supporting us, because those are not cheap trips.
Every hour there was an office girl that worked in the office, picked up the absentee slips, and I was with Mr. Longest from my 8th grade year till I graduated as a senior. So he's a pretty special guy.
Bill Longest was a good man.
I would like to say all librarians meet in the library for a library meeting. Thank you, Mr. Longest, for wonderful memories.
I think that our teachers were very good. Mr. Campbell was a class act.
Mrs. Rose, Coach Lamer, and Doc Campbell.
Mrs. Rose, and Mrs. Caldwell.
5th grade, Mrs. Parham, and then Mr. Campbell.
I loved band. Mr. Stout was awesome. Music, Mrs. Flanagan, I thought she was great.
Doc Campbell, the best, absolute, amazing science teacher. Florence Flanagan, she's a legacy. She's a legend.
Always liked Don Potter.
I really admired Mr. Stout. Coach Harris, he was great.
I admired Doc Campbell.
Mr. Campbell was my favorite. Coach Harris, of course, not because of his classroom, just because of who he was, and he was kind of like a surrogate dad to me for a while.
Mrs. Caldwell ranks way up there at the top for me. And Mrs. Flanagan was awesome. And of course, Mr. Campbell. Who couldn't love Mr. Campbell? And Heidi Fowler. She more seemed like one of us.
Probably one of my favorite teachers was Jim Campbell. Heidi Bostwick was a fun teacher. Larry Scott. All right, you guys, line up. I do remember that.
Mr. Campbell was probably the greatest teacher I ever had, including those I had in college. I had a chance to meet his mother once, and I told her that, and she says a lot of people have told me that. But my favorite teacher of all time was Mr. Stout.
My fondest teacher was probably Heidi Fowler. I adored her. I thought she was a wonderful lady. Coach Harris, Tom Harris, absolutely adored him. And Coach Wilhelm, adored him, thought he was a wonderful man, a wonderful coach.
The biggest one would be Evan Eggleston. He made an impact on my life.
I loved Mr. Potter for math, great math teacher. Mr. Campbell for science. I really appreciate, since I became an English teacher, the Mrs. Fields and Mrs. Bostwick, all of the English teachers, Mrs. Caldwell.
I can think about something good about almost every teacher I had.
I look back now And I'm so thankful for the Laurel Caldwells and the Miss Flanagans and the Anita Witts and the men, the Jim Lamers and the Tom Harrises and Bill Longest and Ralph Rich. What they instilled in us is what gave us the foundation, but I attribute my successes not because I'm a millionaire, but what I have in my beliefs and morals, I attribute that to what they taught me. Our baccalaureate speaker was Grady Bohannon, and he was the pastor at the Nazarene Church. It was such an honor for him to deliver that address.
I felt a sadness in saying goodbye to my friends.
Yeah, the happiest day of my life when they asked me to leave.
This is probably going to be the last place we're all together.
Relief of being out of school.
All the girls are crying, all the boys just wanting to get the hell out of there.
The speaker was really good.
Mr. Rich handing us our diploma.
All of a sudden, I was incredibly sick and knew that I had to get up and leave the room. And so I got up and walked out into the hallway, got sick, and got to the back of the stage and got around just in time to walk across and get my diploma.
Yeah, I made it through graduation. I got to graduate.
We threw our hats up. Then we found them again. Then we had everyone sign inside of our hats and how much that meant.
After we graduated and walking the aisle, going back out, and I was kind of solemn, I guess, in some degree.
And people were coming through to tell us congratulations, and I was crying like a baby because I did not want to leave my family.
And then the realization that, okay, I'm not with my classmates anymore.
It was a special time for all of us.
We were privileged in the 8th grade when Max and Laurel Caldwell came to Hooker.
Little did we know that you are assigned to be a class sponsor when school starts. So my wife and I was assigned to this class, and so that's how it happened, just by coincidence. And it was a real good thing for us because we got to sponsor you all the way through high school. And my wife loved it. She liked to do those kind of things. And she did most of the work. I was just kind of along for the ride. But she especially loved it when you got into high school and started with a junior play and junior senior prom. She loved to do those kind of things. And so she spoke about your class numerous times. Really enjoyed it, yeah. It was real difficult to be a teenager during the late 60s and early 70s. Drugs were pretty rampant on the West Coast and the East Coast. They hadn't quite made it to Hooker yet. Y'all had Vietnam facing you as you went through high school. It was really a difficult time to be a teenager. But as I remember, this class pretty well kept it together. All of you made good grades. All of you graduated on schedule. So overall, this was we were pretty lucky to get to sponsor this class, really.
Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell lived a couple blocks from me when I got ready to go into the Navy. And the day I left, they asked me to come by and visit with them before I left. And I remember that.
Yeah, I can remember seeing 75 and 80 people marching at halftime in our band. And We had a lot of the class members of 71 that were members of that band. You had several members in that class that were good football players and basketball players.
I loved that class, and I had a lot of musical students. They were very musical, and everybody was so sweet, and everybody seemed to get along real well. And I had several that grew up that around me, lived close by. Of course, everybody lived close together in Hooker. But Meredith was one of them, Metcalf. I knew her real well, and she was a wonderful pianist and accompanist for me. Lana lived right across the street from me, and Catherine Steinley lived behind me. She went on to be a marvelous leader in the teaching profession in Broken Arrow. And so I was so proud of her, and so many of and of course Daryl. Pam Meyer lived down the street from me, so I remember all of them pretty much because almost all of them were in my music groups.
But I want to tell you that the class of 71, it's not my absolute favorite because I have to say that to many classes, but you're my first favorite. My first favorite. I always thought the girls were so pretty, the boys were so handsome, and everybody was so wholesome.
Our class had a very special experience, both because of the time and the place. The time was such that it was still fairly innocent, and the place was, I think I mentioned it earlier, it's a safe place. We could not lock our doors. We could leave our keys in the car.
We were an exceptional class.
We're special as a people.
As a whole class, I think we had a great success story.
There's not anybody in our class we don't remember. We know where most of them are now. We know what most of them are doing now. If we don't know, somebody else in the class does know, and it wouldn't be hard for us to locate somebody. And I think the reason that's true is because we were so tight.
Because our class has always been close.
There's a closeness there that is absolutely wonderful that I don't think you get with most classes.
even to this day, we still talk about growing up in Hooker. We'd leave in the morning and come back at night. You know, as long as we were home for supper or when the street lights came on, that was all that mattered, because everybody raised everybody else's kid. And you might eat lunch at somebody else's house, just depending on where you were at the moment, you know, and nobody locked their doors. Everybody was welcome at everybody else's house. When we had athletic events, when we got into high school, everybody was there to cheer you on because everybody got involved in the activities of the kids. It was a pride thing. And, you know, the band, the music, we excelled in all of that stuff. And I think the reason we excelled is because we had so much support.
The small town, being able to walk up and down the streets and not be frightened. The garbage burning in the barrels in the alleyway, I loved it. Trick-or-treating with no fear and not having to be with your parents and not having to go through every piece of candy for fear that there were blades in it and poison and everything else. The churches, and everyone was so close to their church families. Kindness towards others.
We were a bunch of well-behaved kids for the most part.
We were pretty sheltered kids.
It was a sense of family, a sense of belonging, a sense of feeling like you were valued and you were important to your school and to your community. That's what's lacking, I think, for so many kids now.
It's a town full of religious, God-fearing people. What a wonderful town to be brought up in. I mean, all the values that we were taught then are what we carry on with us. And Hooker is where they were all instilled in me. And I feel blessed to have been raised in Hooker, Oklahoma.
Great atmosphere, great experience. I'm so appreciative. Really grateful for being able to grow up as we did.
You know, Hooker is a unique place, really. You heard the old saying that if you wear out a pair of shoes in the panhandle, you'll never leave. Well, I found that to be true for me, because Marianne and I, we spent a total of 46 years in Hooker, Oklahoma. I was high school principal there at Hooker for 20 years, and because of an illness, I took an early retirement. I went into the cattle business and was in the cattle business for 15 years. I think that was probably the best part of my life right there.
As you know, we were there for like 45 years. I couldn't believe that, but we were. So, and I loved the school. I loved my teaching.
The Hooker experience has been valuable to me in my adult life in one sense that I think it really taught me how to treat people properly. I had a little bit of additional training in working in the grocery store. I saw it from the townspeople. They never took me aside and said, here's how you treat people. They showed me by their example. And that has been very valuable to me in my adult life.
Well, we raised our boys in Hooker, and I agree with him. It was a great place to raise children.
You think we're crazy?
Do I think you're crazy? Yes.
I think that's was a great place to live, a great place to grow up. And I wish that my kids could have had the same experience some of the same experiences that I did.
It's scary. I can't believe everything that's happening. And I'm glad I was raised in Hooker, Oklahoma.
Hooker's a place you can always call home.
One thing, Doyle, that I take away from the school that is precious to me, and that is the friendships I've had for 64 years now that are still solid.
I can honestly say, when I was in school, my closest friends are my closest friends today.
The friends you made, they're good friends.
It seemed like everybody, was just friends with everybody else.
I always felt like everybody was like brothers and sisters.
I think that there's a friendship that probably endures all time.
The friendships have been lifetime.
My lovely wife and I just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. I talked to Bill Longest last night. Our relationship has been ongoing. And it's so warm, I think, to be able to talk about our parties, our football game, our play that we were in or we weren't in, whatever, but just our friends, because are we going to be here another 50? How many more of these are we going to be able to celebrate? Let's just celebrate them, and these good friends. Let's just celebrate and enjoy each other and remember things and forget things. That comes along with the territory. But I think it's a celebration that we're very, very happy with what we've decided to do with our classmates and our friends and our family. So that would be mine.
Well, I don't know if I have any advice about your careers. All of you seem to have done so well. But I will say, since I'm in my twilight zone, that keep your health. Keep your health and don't let stress get ahead of you. Think about things, sleep on them. The next day, it's always better. And as far as conflict goes, let it go. Let it go. You know, life's short, enjoy it, and I think you guys know how. So that's all I've got to say.
I hope that you're all happy, and I hope that you all have been successful in whatever you have endeavored in, and I hope that you will continue to be that way. And age makes no difference, believe me. I am 93 now, and I can tell you that I feel just as young as I did practically when I was teaching. So that has nothing to do with anything. And I'm so happy to have a chance to talk about the class of 71.
Enjoy yourself. Have a good time. Some of you have a lot of time left, but some of us don't. So
I hope you all have a good 401k plan or a pension plan, because you know, y'all will be at the age where you are retired or will beginning to retire, and so I hope you've saved well, and I hope you have good health. That'd be my message.
What an adventure. And you may have wondered, why even attempt something like this? To paraphrase the L'Oreal commercial, you are worth it. When I walked into Mr. Epler's geography class for the very first time on Monday, December the 20th, 1965, I had no idea I had just entered a room full of lifelong friends. But thankfully, that's the way it's been. I did ask a lot of people the question, in thinking about our 50th reunion, what does it all mean? And I got a lot of good answers, but not the one I was looking for. So here is my answer to what does it all mean. want you to do something a little different. I want you to look into the camera,
Okay.
and I'm going to say some words, and I want you to repeat them
Okay.
with about the same tone of voice,
Tone of voice,
and
okay.
enthusiasm
Okay.
that I hope I can put into this. Okay. Hold it.
Hold it.
Stop.
Stop.
Just a minute.
Just a minute.
Has it really been
50 years.
Has it really been?
Has it really been?
Hold it. Stop.
I don't follow directions very well.
Look at the camera. Look at me. Has it really been?
Has it really been
2 words. 50 years?
50 years?
Let's try that again. 50 years?
50 years?
A little pause between. 50 years?
50 years.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Hold it.
Hold it.
Stop.
What the hell are you talking about?
You remember any of the class parties we used to go on?
Are you talking about sanctioned class party? Or otherwise?
Maybe both.
I remember both.
So how's it going so far, Dole?
Going well.
Oh, shit.
What's been your biggest embarrassment?
Let me refer back to my notes.
What has been your greatest life accomplishments?
My greatest life accomplishments would be...
Want to try that again?
Yeah.
What has been your greatest life accomplishments?
Accomplishments for my life.
What's he been drinking?
I don't know.
Okay.
Let's, instead of accomplishments, let's say, my life has included, and what has your life included?
My life has included...
What the hell is including?
Okay.
You know what? We're going to get good and relaxed. This is good.
Do you need some waters?
Okay,
Is your
go for it.
tongue not working?
Tell us about your life, Tom.
I can't look at him. I'm sorry.
Okay. We ready?
We're ready when you are. Or do you need the question?
Do the question again. We'll go for
I'll
it.
try. Here's the most fun question. What has been your most embarrassing moment?
That is a fun question for you. Not particularly for me.
I'm sorry. Can we do that question again?
Yeah, what did I say? I can't remember.
Okay, I wanna tell a little story.
Let's wait till the air
Cynthia.
conditioner stops, if we may.
Okay. Did you stop the thing?
No, it's still going. You want me to stop it? I mean, I'll be happy to stop it. Did you go to dances?
Who?
Dances? Did you go to dances in high school?
I don't know anything about dances.
So you weren't there the night Chuck Berry showed up?
Oh, dances.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't dance. Yeah, I was there when Chuck Berry showed up.
Tell me about that.
He showed up.
You remember Dragging Main Street?
No.
You don't.
What?
You're supposed to say about...
Oh, about the trips. You're not getting those.
I just did.
Oh, you can delete it though, can't
Oh,
you?
I don't know if I want to.
Yes, you better delete it. I was like,
Oh, yeah, come on, Nancy. Now, you may have wondered why even attempt something like this. Airplane.
I'm trying to think, was that the one Under the Sea? Was that the one we did?
No, we had kind of a psychedelic.
Yes.
Okay, you'll remember this, because this was a big deal our junior year, when we finally beat Beaver in football.
are you serious? Do you think I'm going to remember that?
I take it you don't?
I don't remember that.
My lottery number was 299.
Thanks for telling me.
I
kept the scoreboard, ran the clock for the Bulldog football team for 25 years. And it was just it was just an easy thing to do for me. I just never did have that desire to move off anywhere. And even today, whenever we travel, I'm always glad to be back.
Very good. Very good. Put this in your hand.